All right. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Bearded Gear podcast. We are on episode 12 already, and this is an exciting episode. Tonight, I'm joined by my buddy Slicey Dicey. Brian, who is the genius behind Slicey Dicey, has been on YouTube for a couple of years now, and he's one of the channels that I've actually watched for a long time. And back when I worked an office job, his channel was one of my kind of guilty pleasures while the boss wasn't looking. So it's fun to be sitting down and having this conversation. We haven't interacted all that much, although we've talked here and there. So I'm looking forward to kind of picking your brain a little bit. How you doing tonight, Brian?
I'm doing well. I'm not super comfortable with the word genius.
What word would you prefer?
A lucky idiot, I think, would be a better description.
All right. Tonight I am joined by the lucky idiot, Brian from Slicey Dicey.
Yeah.
So, Brian, you've been on YouTube for a couple of years, correct?
A little over 3. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that puts you in 2018. You started your channel, late
something
17?
like that. It was last November. It was 3 years. So
okay.
Yeah.
Very cool. I'm just about to hit the 1 year mark, so you are a seasoned veteran compared.
And
to
you're crushing it for 1 year, I will say. Looking at your I watch your videos occasionally, but I hadn't really looked at your subscribers. You're like what 2,500?
No, I just passed 5,600.
5,600. I'm sorry, I got you confused with somebody else that I was looking at earlier today. So yeah, that's right about on pace with what I was, I think, after a year.
Well, that's a good metric. That means I might be a lucky idiot as well.
All of this to look forward to, which is not a lot, but yeah, you can look forward to your $1,000 a month of YouTube ad revenue for the hours of work you put in. But,
yep.
Cool.
Killer, man. So you've been doing it for a little over 3 years. Was there a moment you decided to have a channel, or was there something that kind of spurred that?
Sort of. I've told the story before, but that, the year that I started it, I used to work, still kind of do primarily in the bicycle industry. I have a website, Bent Rider Online. It's all about recumbent bikes and stuff, the kind of goofy ones your feet stick out in front.
I've ridden a recumbent. It's been a while. But
love it. Yeah. I was very passionate about it. That was my primary business. And then in the winter months, the bike industry pretty much shuts down. Mm-hmm. So I get bored, and it's kind of a sad story, but my dog bit me. And it was her last act on this earth. It was as she was being put down. She didn't know what she was doing. She already had, the first dose kind of thing. She bit me pretty hard, and I couldn't type. Like, my hand just didn't work right. And normally during the winter months, I bank reviews. I'd sit there and just write and have reviews ready to filter out over the winter. But I couldn't write. And I was kind of into knives at the time. I think at the time I just had a Spyderco Tenacious and a Manix 2 Lightweight, which is the kind of the knife that really got me into knives.
Yeah.
A couple of Sierra KTs and stuff like that. And I was watching, Shabazz and, the ones that we all started out with, back then. And Kevin Cleary, guys like that. And I kind of thought, not in an arrogant way, but I thought I can do that. Like, I've been reviewing products for 23 years. So, and I've reviewed everything from bicycles to cell phones to a couple of cars, like all kinds of stuff. And, once you get the formula down, and you find your voice of it, it's good. I've worked for Wired.com. I worked for myself. I worked for several magazines, probably a couple dozen by now. And I thought, and I'm a comedian is my main job now. And I thought, or will be next month, hopefully. We'll be allowed back again, allegedly. And I thought, I like talking to people. I'm just going to give it a shot. I drove down to Best Buy. I bought one of those like bendy, iPhone holders. I think we all use initially, for the tabletop thing that if you bump it, it vibrates for 25 seconds in the video. And I went down and bought one of those. And I shot a couple videos and had no idea what I was talking about. And reached out to Love Them Knives and Stasa 23 and Zelric 42, who now is, part of Todd Knife and Tool and doesn't do YouTube that much anymore. But I reached out to those guys because I watched their channels, and I thought they were approachable. turns out like Nick is one of my best friends now. I was kind of afraid to talk to him.
He's a really
Even
nice
back
guy.
then,
Yeah.
but he's the best dude in the world. But I didn't know that back then. So I reached out to those guys, and they helped me get going and gave me some advice, told me what knives to buy. I had some disposable income available at that time, so I went out and bought like a PM2 and a Benchmade 940, and all the benchmark kind of stuff,
Hmm.
that you should have, and just tried to educate myself and started doing videos. And by middle of January the following year, I had like 1,000 subs, and I thought, well, maybe this is a thing. I don't know. Maybe it'll be a thing. I'm pretty good at building relationships with sponsors and companies and stuff, because I've been doing it for 22 years, and there are ways to be critical of stuff without being a dick,
Right.
and I think that's what shot me ahead with the bigger companies, is they realized that I kind of knew what I was doing as far as
Hmm.
that went, to hit that tone where if you watch one of my videos, like you know if I like something or if I don't, but you don't have to be an ass about it.
Right.
Um, I can't stand reviewers, whether it's YouTube or written or anything, that take glee in finding something wrong.
Hmm.
That's a couple of years ago, maybe a year ago. That was an aspect of the knife YouTube community that was really turning me off.
Mm.
Was people found a little flaw with something, and there just was this glee over it, like, oh, look
Right.
at me, I'm smarter than everybody else, I found this one thing wrong. And
And it's very clickbaity, and it gets a ton of
yeah, you,
views when
you
it's
don't
your
you
title
don't
is this
well
dramatic flaw,
well yeah, good job. Now if that company makes a really good knife in a year, they're not going to give you the time of day. So
Right.
good job. um it's, you can point out the stuff's wrong without being a jerk, and that's kind of what I tried to do. And as it went on, and I felt like I kind of half knew what I was talking about, which I did not, by the way. But I thought I did. I started trying to interject more humor and stuff, and I think I found a niche that people seem to enjoy, mostly. Um,
Yeah.
I get the occasional, you know, troll like everybody does, but I I always say, like, if you're gonna troll me on the internet, keep in mind that nothing you say is gonna be as bad as what some woman from a bachelorette party told me at 1 o'clock in the morning the weekend before. So
Yeah.
it really doesn't bother me. I know everybody says that, oh, the trolls don't bother me. They really don't bother me. I
Getting
find them
heckled by a
amusing a
live
lot of the time.
audience is a little different.
Yeah, I usually screenshot them and share them with my friends because I think it's
Yeah.
really funny. Some
Same.
of them, but yeah, I have a little group on Instagram that we all, a bunch of other YouTubers, and we talk, and yeah, that's our favorite thing is just, oh, look at this idiot. Like, I think most of us, you develop a pretty thick skin or you go away, one or
Right.
the other. So if you've been in it for a while, you got a pretty thick skin, and it's funny. The ones I appreciate the most are the ones that are genuinely funny.
Hmm.
If you get me good about something and it's funny, I'm gonna click that little heart button. And I don't usually respond to them because I don't want to like feed the beast, but
Right.
it's I genuinely take joy sometimes in people who hate me, and as long as you're funny about it and somewhat creative, I usually kind of appreciate it. So
Yeah.
I'm
And
not
it
telling
seems
you
like,
what guys to do all go out and troll my channel, but
right.
it does amuse me sometimes. It does bring me joy more than it brings me anger, I guess.
Yeah. And the ratio seems pretty good. You get far more positive comments than you do negative ones, I would
I
assume.
I would say that, yes, that's true. But as the bigger I get, the more the more negative you get, and that's just natural, I think. But yeah, it's I enjoy it. I'm still very passionate about it. Like, when I tell my backstory, it sounds like I kind of got into knives because I thought it was a niche I could do well in. And partly true. I would say when I started the channel, I was not nearly as passionate about it as I am now.
Yeah. That's
And
okay for your passion to
and
grow while you do it.
and I would say in the bike industry, it's the opposite way. I was much more passionate about it when I started reviewing them than I
Mm.
was, 20 years later. It's a vastly different time sample, but still, the passion eroded. Where with this, it's definitely still, I'm still super passionate about it, and I'm jaded. You do it for a while, like you've been in it less than a year, you'll see it in a couple years. You'll get jaded with some stuff. We all do eventually, but it's still overall it's great people, and that's kind of the community always keeps me going. They make me laugh all the time, and I'm kind of a hard guy to make laugh. In my live shows and stuff make me laugh like every week, and um, we let it descend into madness the last half hour of the show, and that's like my favorite half hour of the week.
Yeah. So how has your kind of flow of the channel developed over time? Do you still upload about the same amount that you did when you
No,
started? Or?
no, I was doing no real set time for the first couple of years. I would say on average, I was doing about 3 a week, and
Mm,
then maybe 4, and then COVID hit, and I was really, upset about it, and everybody was locked down, and it was very scary, and all I could do was give people something to watch.
mhm.
So, I'm not a doctor. I'm a moron. Like, there's nothing I can do to help. I'm not rich. I can't donate money. So I was doing 2 videos a day for, I think the first 3 months,
Mhm.
like from March to like end of May or something like that. And then I got it, and so that became unsustainable. And now I try to do one a day,
Mm.
but I miss one every now and then. But I try and do one a day, and one of them's a live show, which that's easy. Just flip the camera on and talk. But
Right.
uh, it's I try and do one a day. That will that stay forever? I don't know. Right now, there's still that much stuff I want to do videos about, but I'm not going to force myself to do one a day. If I just don't have anything interesting to talk about or to review, then I'm just not going to do a video that day. And I
Yeah,
try not to
definitely
beat
makes sense.
myself up about it, but um, that's what YouTube rewards you for, is that consistency.
Right.
They don't care how often you post; they just want you to be consistent. And unfortunately, I've set that bar at one a day. But so far, it has not been a challenge to do one a day. But there may be a day when it does become a challenge.
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny, my whole kind of strategy when I began my channel was very focused on creating a library quickly so that if people
And
found me.
and you do have to do that initially, yeah.
Yeah, and so, like, my first day, I uploaded 3 or 4 videos. The next day, it was 3 or 4 videos, and I kept going, multiple uploads,
Mhm.
and I started when I got furloughed because of COVID, so I could, like, treat it like a
Yeah.
full-time job, which was really cool, and, yeah, I'll be hitting a year this month, and I'll have over 600 videos uploaded when that happens, so I've averaged almost 2 a day. There was a little bit where I kinda went back to work for a moment, so I was just barely holding on to 1 a day, um but then when I quit my day job, now it's like I do this and content creation with my wife. So I'm still pretty average
Yeah,
2 a day.
I pretty much do this and stand up
Yeah.
starting next month. It's been just this for the last few months. So, I mean, my bicycle site still exists, but it's kind of on autopilot. I don't write reviews or stuff anything anymore.
Mm,
I just have a huge message board that I still get a little bit of revenue from. But
mm.
yeah, this has become kind of an all-consuming sort of thing, and I really like it. And I'm sure you've noticed too. Just the community is so good, to deal with, and I was unsure how I'd be accepted. That was my largest concern. And
Mm.
maybe you too, because no offense, you're a little hipster looking guy, and you're young, you live in LA, I'm not young, but I live in New York. I don't espouse my political or religious beliefs, but I think it's pretty clear to everybody I'm not necessarily in the, you know, wheelhouse of everyone. I'm not a gun guy or anything, so I just had no idea how I'd be accepted. But that's part of the reason why I liked Shabazz, because he clearly, I knew like, well, they like him.
Right.
Maybe they'll like me. And
Yeah, there's a lot of machismo in the community that
there is.
I think is kind of loud, but there's also the deeper and deeper I get into the community, the more I realize that the real tough guy crowd is kind of a minority. They're just a loud minority.
Yeah, exactly. And
And most of them are
and
cool too when you
and
talk to them.
most of them are pretty cool if you kick them in the balls about it every now and then.
Yeah,
And that's how I interact with humans. I'm an Irish comedian. Like
sure.
my house is a rough house to be in. If
In
you
my
mess up,
family, if we weren't making fun of you, we didn't love you. So
yeah, if you
I get
mess
that.
up this much, you know, it's not going to go well for you. That's just how we are. And I was raised that way. My
Mhm.
mother and my father always made fun of me constantly, and I think most of them are pretty willing to take it. I've gotten a few really nasty, things. One from a manufacturer who I won't review anymore. But it, most of the time, it's all been great, and nobody cares. I used to jokingly, I don't anymore, but I used to jokingly call myself, the token Buddhist liberal of the knife world, and I'm a terrible Buddhist, but I am one. But I'm really bad at it. But as I'm sitting here drinking a beer and eating meat, but yeah, it's I was really pleasantly surprised how well everybody accepted it. I think as long as you like, I think that knives, even though knives aren't like as demonized as guns and stuff, it's still not something you lead with at a party,
Yeah, not
you know.
mainstream enough.
And I think that we just think, well, he likes that same weird thing that I like, and I'm gonna give him a chance anyway.
Right. Yeah, it is funny too when you do find somebody not on the internet who actually is in the hobby, or
Mhm.
even just really like has an affinity for it. It's such an immediate bond. I was at my niece's birthday party the other night, small outdoor little gathering, right? And my brother-in-law's brother-in-law. So I'm not related to this guy at all, but I've met him a handful of times, like shaking his hand kind of thing. It's a little bit chilly outside for LA. So I build a fire in the fire
So it's
pit, and all of a
60.
sudden, yeah, it was 55. Yeah, it's real cold,
Oh,
bitter.
oh,
Um,
oh.
and so I started building a fire in the fire pit because of my brother-in-law's house. I'm comfortable enough over there to just build a fire in his fire pit. And all of a sudden, like a bunch of dudes come and like circle around the fire pit, right?
Yeah.
And
But it's the most basic human instinct, I think.
yeah. And so one of the guys is my brother-in-law's brother-in-law, and he comes over, and I was carrying my CKF Evo 2.0, and there was a bundle of firewood with like saran wrap holding it together. So I pulled it out and just cut it and put it back in my pocket, not making a scene, just
Hmm.
whatever. And he drives a lifted truck, and he's like a guy's guy, right? So I assume no one's gonna make a big deal out of it. But he was like, "Oh, was that a Benchmade?" And I was like, "No, not quite. But do you like Benchmade?" And he's like, "Yeah, I've got a couple Benchmades." I was like, "Oh, cool." So I pull it out. I was like, "This one's actually it's a very small kind of production, interesting situation. But this is a Russian knife." And I hand it to him. And he's like, "Oh my gosh!" Like the idea that there was a knife like this had never even crossed his mind. So he's checking it out. And then in my back pocket, I had a Microtech Troodon. So I show him that as well. And of course, an OTF to anybody is exciting,
Yeah,
especially if
that's
you're.
cool. Yeah.
And so immediately he was just like, oh my gosh, I got to talk to
Yeah.
this guy. So then for like 2 hours at the party, this dude is like attached to my hip, telling me about all the knives he owns. It turns out he's got some CJRBs, some Spydercos, some
Yeah.
Benchmades, and he's watched some Blade HQ videos, and he didn't know there's like this whole community thing,
Yeah.
right? But he was all into it. And it was just really funny how like, because the knife was the common thing, all of a sudden this dude now, like every time I see him, it's going to be like an exciting
Yeah.
conversation and cool. And
The two funniest ones I had was I so we do like a Friendsgiving thing. So um on Thanksgiving often we'll do like Thanksgiving with our families, and then we all go to my buddy's house, and it's all friends from like high school and high school friends we've accumulated along the way. It's usually like, dozen, 15 of us.
mhm.
And uh, the year after I started the channel, I went there, and I was just trying to carry something like gentlemanly, like kind of slim, and didn't think that anything. I had a freaking Kershaw, um, one of those slim Kershaw collabs. God, I cannot think of the guy's name. I feel so bad. But I had a real, like, a nice looking but very inexpensive, slim little gentleman looking Kershaw, and I was there, and my friend who hosts the thing is one of my best friends in the world, but he's kind of an ass. So he brought up that I review knives on YouTube to try and kind of embarrass me.
Yeah, to make a jab
And,
at you.
yeah, and one of my buddies pulls out ZT Emerson like a really nice knife. Another guy pulls out like a Spyderco Rock, which when do you ever see those things?
Never. Yeah.
Another guy has the Sabenza, and I'm just like, I have those, but they're at home. Like I didn't expect
I
this
didn't
to
want to be
happen.
that guy.
And they're like, yeah, okay, whatever. So now I know every year since I've gone there, like I will not be out knifed
You
again.
got to flex.
So I got to flex. And then the other funny one is I was going into a Walgreens one time up here, and guy was wearing the same exact boots as me, these Keen boots that I like the same exact hiking boots I wear all the time.
Mhm.
And I said, "Oh, nice boots." And he kind of looked at me weird because he didn't get why I said it. And then he goes, "Are you Slicey Dicey?" And I was like, "Yeah." And he was like, "Oh, awesome!" And he had like a PM2 in his pocket or something like that. And we stood outside the Walgreens and chatted for a minute. But it was kind of like because I just mentioned his boots, and he thought I was a weirdo
Yeah.
for commenting on his boots. And then it turns out he knew who I was. So
That's epic.
yeah,
The only time I've ever been recognized has been at a knife show, at California Custom Knife
I was
Show.
gonna say go to Blade Show, you'll get recognized all the time.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Crazy.
I had a guy ask my autograph in line at a Hardee's, like the day before Blade Show, and I was on the phone screaming at my bank at the time because I deposited a check right before I left so that I had Blade Show money to spend, and they put a hold on the check, which they'd never done that before.
Mm.
So I'm screaming at him to get the hold. I won, by the way, the argument, but I'm yelling at my bank, and the guy heard my voice on the phone yelling at my bank, and he just turned around and he didn't say, "Are you Slicey Dice" or anything. He just handed me a marker and said, "Can you sign my shirt?" He was wearing like a Blade HQ shirt. And I was like, yeah, nice to meet you. But I'm trying to get, my $2,000 released. So
Yeah.
kind of occupied. So I kind of signed his shirt. Fucking phone, he was gone. So whoever you were, man, sorry, I didn't mean to blow you off. I needed my $2,000 so I could go buy knives.
That's epic. Yeah, I don't think I don't know what I would do if somebody asked me to sign their shirt. I mean, I would do it. I just think that would be a
Yeah, I mean, the first couple are awkward, and then this guy sounds like such an arrogant person, but from stand up, I'm used to it. Like if it's not from knife. So, and I wrote a book about bicycles, so I did book signings and stuff. So, the first couple you get it's awkward, and then after that you're just kind of used to it. You even get like the face where you sign stuff without looking at it. So you like intentionally like, "Oh yeah, no problem, man. Yeah, happy to sign it for you." And it's just like it's the little things in life that get you through.
There you go.
Make you feel like I'm worth something.
Yeah, you might as well drink it in. Feel that.
Yeah, but no, I didn't. I think I only signed like maybe 10 or 12 at Blade Show. It wasn't like a big deal, but it was funny. And then Nick Shabazz did his masked meet and greet at the Blade HQ booth, and he let me horn in on that. So that was fun.
That's awesome
because he was there in his Batman mask, and
yeah,
it was cool. He had little kids coming up to have him sign. It was pretty awesome.
That's way cool. Yeah, I mean, it's crazy because he really is the biggest like kind of enthusiast channel at this point, I would say. That's not like Blade HQ, or I know there's that Cutlery Lover Jeff guy. I was looking one time. He has
he's
ton.
Huge, but he got huge years ago.
Right. And the types of videos he makes are very different from,
and they're very different from what he used to do. So yeah, he's kind of like legacy huge, if that makes any sense. Seems like a very nice guy.
Totally.
I've never met him, but yeah, and then you got like Gideon's Tactical is pretty big. Yeah, and wow, I'm totally brain farting because I haven't watched him in forever. Guy who puts the zip ties on all the Spydercos and nothing fancy. Jesus, why couldn't I think of that?
I get comments a lot of the time on like even now on like my old Benchmade Bugout long-term review. People will reference the Nuttin' Fancy Bugout review because that was like specifically really, really bad. And mine was very positive. I think the Bugout is a fantastic knife.
And what has time told us?
That it's a fantastic knife and it doesn't break all the time.
Like the best-selling thing they've ever made.
Yeah. The amount of units they've put out and how few you see broken.
Yeah,
not really a
yeah.
thing.
It's not a thing. And there are some aspects of, um, and I say this in reviews a lot, and the bug out's one of them, where they say, "Oh, but if you bend it like this, it flexes." Don't do that.
Right.
There are some aspects of knife design flaws that are a problem. There are some that just don't do that.
Right. It's not
Like,
even necessarily a flaw. It's just like,
yeah, like on higher end knives, I'm a big fan of Guardian Tactical, the
mhm,
OTFs, and they put the tip of the blade very, very close to the end of the OTF. So yeah, if you pull it out of your pocket and rub your finger across it as hard as you can,
you can get there.
you can
Yeah.
get there. But
I can touch it on my Troodon right now,
yeah,
or
but
combat Troodon.
but don't don't do that.
Right.
It's just like, yeah, it's a problem on some knives if it's like recently the Chavez Liberation 229. Like that sticks out close, and it's where your hand slides past it going into your pocket. Like that was one I did say this is a problem, and on my personal one, I filed it off a little bit, um,
Mm,
so I wouldn't do that. But yeah, on an OTF, when is your finger ever going to interact with that part unless you're
right.
trying to do it? And that big one of the big controversies we talked about, I think we mentioned earlier about, like, some controversies getting blown out of proportion. One of them was that spine thwack
The
thing.
ZTs.
ZT.
Yeah.
Don't don't do that.
Right.
It's just like in general use, never gonna happen. And honestly, I honestly owned 6 ZTs at that time, and none of them did it.
Right. Yeah. I remember those videos coming out,
Yeah.
and that was the time when I worked that office job where I'd watch your videos a lot. And I specifically remember I had my 0562 in my pocket one day when I saw that started getting talked about.
Hmm.
And on the edge of my hardwood desk, I just whacked it and it stayed locked up. It was
Yep.
fine. And
Yep.
then I worked in connection with a race shop that did off-road race vehicles. And so even like out in the shop, the next time I was using it, I was doing a bunch of cardboard cutting. And then again, I like whacked it a good few times to see. And I was like, mine's not failing. And then I had an 0620 and a 609. I had a few different
Yeah.
ZTs and none of them had that
I,
issue.
I did have one later on, like after that whole thing was over, that got I think it was an 0393, and it would do it if you really gave it a good whack, but only if it was against a roll of tape, which is what he was doing it on.
Weird.
And I think it was some kind of frequency with a roll of tape. If I could whack it on hardwood, it wouldn't do it, but
Hmm.
it would do it. But did it ever bite me? Was it ever a thing? No.
Right.
It's just
Plus, while you're using a knife, you're applying pressure with your grip to the frame lock, if it's a frame lock,
exactly.
and you're pushing this way. So maybe if you're batoning, but even then, you're batoning into a
Yeah,
material
I don't
typically.
see how that would be a problem in daily use where that would be an issue. But oh my God, the whole internet loved that. That was everybody
Right.
lost their tiny little minds. And it's sometimes good stuff comes out of the furor, I guess. I don't give a lot of lip service to it, but the thing with Lion Steel and the M390 that wasn't right, which that
Mhm.
was just not right, but they explained it and they took care of it, and it seems to have been better now. But I don't get into all the HRC testing stuff. If it works, it works, and the guys who know about that know a lot more about me, or know a lot about more about it than I do.
Yeah.
And I don't want to dive down that rabbit hole, but something good came out of that, I guess. There is that database now of, what failed and what didn't, and what was what it said it was and what wasn't.
Yeah. I
So,
really enjoy learning about that stuff, but much like
yeah.
you, I don't have I guess, the patience to try and retain it all. Like I own the Knife Steel Nerds book from Laren Thomas, which is awesome, and
Mhm.
I've read it and I've enjoyed it. But like I didn't sponge it all in, and I also watch a lot of like steel test videos because I want to make sure that I'm getting the best.
Yeah.
I always like kind of I talk
Yeah.
about it like they're supercars when you're talking about super steels, and it's like even if I'm only gonna go 100 miles an hour, like I want to get a Lamborghini that's actually built to properly go fast. So if it
I'll watch
says it's M390, then it should have a certain level of performance in it, and
I'll watch
it's
them
right to expect that.
when it's about like a new steel,
Yeah,
that I haven't seen before. But other than that, I kind of, you know, you get to a point where you can, if you put it on a sharpener and touch it up, you can tell if it's right or not.
Yeah.
You know what M390 is supposed to. You don't have to fully sharpen it sometimes. Just like,
How much does
just
your
trying to
stone bite
touch
in?
up an edge, you're like, this is not right, or it is, And I'll call stuff out if I think it's horrible. Like Spider Coast VG10 is garbage. But I hate that stuff. I don't know why. I just can't stop talking about it. This is the softest steel I've ever seen in my life, and everybody gets mad at me about it because I hate the Delica. I hate all of them.
I think the only VG10
But
Spyderco I've ever owned, I have a glow-in-the-dark Dragonfly that was a gift from Cutlery Shop that after I reviewed, Jeff had instructed me to give to my daughter, which is really cool. So
no, that's neat.
it's gonna be for my daughter. And then
Well,
I've
she
got
won't cut
a
herself
chef's
on
knife.
it.
True. She has a wooden
Spider coat
Dragonfly.
burn.
She has a wooden Dragonfly that we like built together a couple years ago and we painted. She like brings it on hikes. And then now she has the glow in the dark one for when she's old enough. It still sits in my knife case for now, but I have she's 6, so
it's a fun age.
Yeah, a little too young to give her a live blade, but
yeah, but at 6 they're like they're still stupid, but not super stupid.
Yeah, she's witty. She catches me
they
sometimes.
still get a joke every now and then, and they're a lot of fun, and they're harder to break.
Right.
And this is a very morbid joke I tell on stage, but I said, good thing about your kids growing up is every single year they're less likely to die.
It's true.
It's just like, once they're like 12, they're not going to drink bleach anymore.
Right.
It's usually fine to leave them alone for a little bit. But
yeah, my parents left me home alone. I mean, I was the youngest of 5 kids, so a lot of the time they were older siblings.
yeah.
But I mean, like home alone, just me. I couldn't have been older for the first time, maybe 8 or 9.
I would guess I was probably 9, 10, something like that. We lived right next door to my grandparents, so
there you go.
They were always right there. We lived out in the boonies, and what I realize now is best described as a commune. I'm extremely Irish, so my grandfather was first generation off the boat, and had a bit of an accent when he was drinking, and we all lived together. And my last name's Ball, but my mother's maiden name is McGill, and everybody around us, we lived in this little cluster of houses, literally in the middle of nowhere in upstate New York, and everyone's last name was McGill. Every mailbox said McGill except ours.
That's amazing.
My mother, and now I know we spoke kind of our own language. I didn't know up until about 10 years ago, I was still discovering words that I did not know weren't words that normal people said, and I would say them and no one knew what I was talking about. And now I know slightly offensive term if you live in England, but we were pikeys basically, which is like Irish gypsies.
Oh, okay.
So we spoke pikey words to each other, and I would say them, and everybody's like, that's not a word, I don't know what you're talking about. And I got in a lot. I really offended some people on one of my videos. Actually, it's still, I think, my most downvoted video. One of my most viewed, though. I can't remember which video it is now, but I said I was talking about a knife, and I said, I wish it came in this particular configuration, but it doesn't because there is no God. And I just said, that's a thing I heard all the time. That's just an Irish thing that people say. Yeah. I'd be like, Mom, can I have a cookie? No, you can't have another cookie. Why not? Because there's no God. That's just what we would say to each other.
Yeah.
I meant nothing by it. I don't care if there is a God or not. I have no opinion one way or the other.
Yeah.
And oh man, the comments on that. Did he really just deny the existence of the creator? And I'm like,
shoving atheism down their throats with your joke.
I did. And it's just, I'm not an atheist. I'm just ambivalent.
Yeah, that's awesome. I get such a kick out of, I know we already kind of scratched this surface, but the comments, I have a tendency, much like kind of Advanced Knife Bro, I think I kind of got it from him. When I get a really funny negative comment, I will respond very snarkily, but I have a set of kind of rules for myself. So I will not make it personal. I won't hurl insults at the person. But I'll just, in a crafty way, a lot of the time, I think, kind of point out their own idiocy to them with my response. And then I screenshot it and I block out their name and I put it in my Instagram stories. And we all laugh
I've
about
seen
it.
those.
And
I've seen
yeah,
those. Yeah, I laughed.
it's
at them a lot.
amazing.
Yeah,
And it's so much fun. And it builds like kind of this culture within my own comment section where a lot of times if one of my viewers who knows that I do that sees a negative
they
one come
try to
in,
make the list.
they'll respond snarkily to that person too. And it's like becomes this like self-policing community almost. But I think it illustrates two people making those comments that maybe they didn't realize it, but they are being an ass.
Yeah.
Like
it's good to have minions, isn't it? Though, like it's just like and somebody said the other day, I can't remember who it was, one of my fellow YouTuber friends said somebody had said something really nasty to him, and a couple of his people were getting mad, and he said, "Well, I don't want to, unleash people on him." Like, what good is it to have minions if you don't use them?
You got to use them in the right moments.
You have to get drunk with your tiny amount of power every now and then, and just unleash the hounds and let them go. But my favorite responses to those is if I get like a really long, lengthy response about precisely how I'm stupid, and it's not correct, I'll just reply, "Cool story," and that really upsets people. Or better yet,
you're just dismissing them.
yeah, cool story. Or I'll just correct one word of grammar.
There's always a lot of mistakes.
Say nothing else. So you'll have like a 3-paragraph and you just put apostrophe, or you put a little asterisk sign to put YOU apostrophe RE and then just leave it. It's one of the best joys in the world. Just to know how mad they are that they know you read the whole thing.
Right.
Because you spotted the one grammar error.
Yeah.
And then you didn't respond to the content of it. You just corrected their grammar and moved on with your day.
What gets me is that people let themselves get worked up enough to sit there and angrily type that much at a person on YouTube. It would never, I am not that person, and I don't know people personally, at least unless they're like closeted angry YouTube commenters. I just don't know anybody who's like that.
I am that person on the phone. If I call, my phone company or something, and they, I'm that guy on the phone. I think that I had a big row with my ISP that hosts my other site and is going to be hosting the new Slicey Daily site, hopefully starting next week. I think they underestimate my ability to sit on the phone and complain. And they'll say, "Well, we're going to have to put you on hold and escalate the call." I'm like, "Yep, fine.
Do it."
And I'm not nice on the phone. And that was, I can't believe my wife and I are actually husband and wife, because God, it was like, I think maybe our third date. Somebody called me and I don't remember what it was now. And I think it was my cell phone. And I was really angry. And I just was peak angry Brian, just condescending, swearing prick.
Using made up Irish
on the phone. And I ended the call with a pretty strong go F yourself, and hung up on him and threw the phone. And she just was kind of wide-eyed sitting there. I'm like, "Oh, sorry, I do that." And she sometimes will sit next to me on the phone being like, "Calm down." But yeah, I'm usually not too bad, and I mean I can write a nasty email, but it's mostly on the phone. I just like I don't know, I like arguing on the phone.
Yeah, I tend
it was the IRS.
Default.
That's who I was yelling at. I remember it was the IRS. Yeah,
they deserve it.
Oh, the guy had it coming. I was so I get income from multiple places, so I had reported all my income correctly, but a company sent me a 1099 without telling me they were going to send me a 1099.
Mm-hmm.
By the time I got it, I already done my taxes, and I thought, well, I put it in there. It's fine.
Mm-hmm.
Well, they wait 3 years for all the interest to build up, and then they told me I owed them $2,500 on an $1,800 1099.
Ridiculous.
I got paid $1,800. They wanted me to pay $2,500 in taxes, and I called the guy, called the place, and then they were like, "Well, you tried to defraud the government," and this is like peak tax time. I'm like, I'll cut out the swears. I'm like, "What? You're a temporary employee. you're not an IRS agent. It's peak tax time. I know that you're a temporary employee.
Right.
Who the hell do you think you're talking to? And I just started yelling at him. And I said, if I really tried to defraud the government, have an agent call me or knock on my door.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, just, whatever. Let me talk to somebody who knows what the hell they're talking about.
Yeah.
And I just was. She was like, you were swearing at the IRS? I'm like, yeah, he's not a real IRS person.
Yeah. That's epic. Yeah, I feel like with certain, I don't know, it's kind of like my YouTube comments. I have like rules for myself. Everybody has their own moral compass, right? But like I always default to being like overly nice and like trying to be pretty generous with people I come in contact with. If it's someone else in line, I'm pretty bad at it while I'm driving, but I try. But like something about if my phone rings and it's a person who is determined to be difficult with me,
yes,
then I will escalate things with them. Or if it's like lately we've had internet issues and I finally just got an entirely new internet service, but we were dealing with Spectrum was the company we had. And it was like, we just could not get the amount of internet we were paying for. And it was getting worse and worse. And we kept like devices were just getting bumped off. And it was like, we'd even upgraded it to see if that would help by like adding more. It was just like, nothing was working. They'd send people out. It wouldn't help. And so every phone call that I got on with them, I was increasingly belligerent because it was like, with what both I and my wife do at this point, there is nothing more important in our home than the internet, except maybe the electricity, because without electricity, then we couldn't have internet.
Yeah,
but
I don't even have cable TV anymore.
I don't. Yeah. It's like we're millennials. We never have.
And that's we're looking at buying a house, and like we have Greenlight up here, which is a fiber optic. So I have like the mother of all internet connections.
I'd kill for fiber optic. They won't put it in here.
It's worth killing for. But like we're shopping for new houses, and I was like, oh, we have to see if Greenlight's there because it's not everywhere yet around here.
Yeah.
But it's very important. But yeah, there's something about, I think it is a reverse. We talk about primal instinct with the fire. It's like I think new primal instinct is talking on the phone is inconvenient.
Mm-hmm.
Like I don't like if I have to call someone, something's not working right. Because I should be able to email or text or whatever. So if I'm calling someone and it's not like a friend, then I'm probably already slightly pissed off.
Oh yeah,
that I had to call.
That's a good point. All the calls that I make that aren't specifically just to like chat with a buddy are all because there's an issue I'm trying to get fixed.
Nobody. I do everything online. Like I always say, my definition of civilization is: can I order Thai food without speaking to a human being? If I can do that, then it's probably civilization that I can stand to live in. I grew up in the boonies. I grew up, hunting, fishing, all that stuff, and I had loaded guns in my closet when I was 14. But I'm not that guy anymore. I'm definitely a city folk, and I prefer to stay that way. I like to go out and hike in the woods and ride a bike and be outdoors, but I want to go home at night, order Grubhub and watch Netflix and be happy. So.
I gotcha. See, I'd probably be happy in a cabin somewhere, but my wife is so city dependent.
I think I would be ecstatic in a cabin for about a week. I think
if I had good internet, I could live in a cabin forever, but that might not be
being in a cabin.
Well, I mean, I don't need to like be able to order delivery. I don't need Postmates or Uber.
Surroundings are, and I could get by cook. I mean, I love to cook. I'm the guy who cooks all the food in the house, and I love cooking. But I could stand. I would like. I go to Germany a lot. Used to before the global bastard hit. So hopefully that's over with soon. I used to go to Germany a couple weeks a year, and one of my favorite things about it is the time difference. So I get up really early in Germany. I get up at like 6:37 in the morning and start going about my day, and no one bothered me until noon because the time difference. Because I'm East Coast, so the time difference between East Coast and Germany. Everyone I knew, nobody woke up, so my phone wouldn't ring. And this is when my mother was in a nursing home and stuff. She's passed away now. But when I knew that like no one would bother me, and that was why I had to go there a couple weeks a year just to recharge my batteries. And I don't think my wife ever really understood until she went with me one year.
Hmm.
And yeah, those early mornings from like 6:30 to noon, it was the closest to being off the grid, that I've been in an eon.
Yeah, because no one's even trying to
No
interrupt.
one's trying to call me because they assume I'm asleep. And oh, by the way, you ever want an excuse for not doing something? I'm out of the country is the best excuse ever. It's amazing.
Yeah.
But and that's also why I think I've kind of gotten into watches lately, is because I used to wear an Apple Watch all the time because I had to be connected. I had to, in
Hmm.
case something were on my mother, I had to get notified about that. I was working for Knives Illustrated. I had like 12 people under me. That was very time consuming. I needed to know what was going on there. And then, pretty short order, I left Knives Illustrated. My mother passed away, and I no longer needed to be connected. And now I refuse to be.
Hmm.
Losing that Apple Watch is just like freedom.
Gotcha.
You
See,
know?
that's been my one thing that's kept me from getting into watches at all. Because I always think they're really cool and interesting, and I've had some like kind of low
Yeah.
end watches that excited me years ago. But ever since I've had Apple Watch, I've the idea of going back to a less connected watch that's not really a device like this has been like, well, what's the point? But I love the amount of connection. So maybe that's just the different point
Yeah,
we're at,
and you're younger, and I think it's just because it was part of the stuff with my mom.
Yeah.
That was a rough. The last 6-7 years of her life were pretty rough, and just that constant thing buzzing all the time. And when my watch would buzz, it wasn't always just CNN saying something happened. It was somebody calling trying to get a hold of me because something hit my mother. Or,
something in your real actual life. That's a
yeah,
real stressor. Yeah.
or somebody from Knives Illustrated not knowing what they were supposed to do, and it was once I got rid of it. Now, like it's more like mechanical watches, and yeah, I have to get up and set them every day. The way I change them a lot, so usually they're dead when I get morning, and I have to set it and everything. But to me, that little wind in that spring and stuff, it's just freedom to me.
Hmm.
I know this thing ain't gonna buzz, and that's what I love about it. And that's kind of one thing I like about knives too, is the mechanicalness of them. I think that's the my only other real hobby is I like old typewriters,
Hmm.
and it's the same thing. I think I just like very
Tactile.
tactile, mechanically, sort of useful things.
Yeah. That's funny. The other day, my wife is on this kind of big fitness kick right now.
Mm-hmm.
And we were out on a family hike. I guess it was just over a week ago. We try at least every Sunday. We go, just her, my daughter, and I. And it's not that crazy of a hike because we've got our 6-year-old with us. But we go and we just do these little hikes. And my wife is always trying to get a certain number of steps in. She'll do like an exercise in the morning, and then throughout the day she wants to hit a certain number of steps. And she her phone like wasn't recording the steps, and she had forgotten her Apple Watch, and she at the end of the hike she was like, oh man, none of these steps counted.
It's like it didn't even happen.
I was like, well, hold on, you realize your body just got all of the exercise, right? But that's happened to me too, where like on hikes I like to like time myself, and I'll know if I'm going to this waterfall, typically I can get there in 28 minutes. So I'm going to try to do it in 26 today. And I'll just like, I like to use it as a way to push myself. And if I forget it, I feel so like, well, I don't know how long this is taking.
I was
but it doesn't matter,
I was that way with cycling. This thing called Strava.
Yeah, Strava's really cool.
I used to be a professional cyclist. So when I put my mind to it, and if I want to not be able to walk for a couple of days, I can break some records on some stages if I want to, or used to be able to anyway. I haven't ridden in a year probably because I was sick and everything. But yeah, it's really frustrating when you bust your ass on a little short sprint section and then realize it wasn't.
No one recognizes it.
And I was like, oh no! But I've always thought about getting one of those. Joining, like getting back in somewhat shape and joining like the rookie rooms and just crushing everyone. That would be a lot of fun for a couple weeks. I assume they make you move up if you
Probably.
wind up
Yeah.
beating everybody. But yeah, I used to be really fast, but those
That's
days are
awesome.
long, long, long gone.
Yeah. Before I started dating my wife, I was really into cycling and I would do like some century rides with friends and stuff.
Yeah,
And I loved it, but I haven't even had a decent bike in a long time now.
I raced cross country mountain bikes professionally for a couple of
That's
years,
awesome.
and I was mostly I did I raced XC is the thing I did the most often, but what I was the best at was the endurance racing. So like the
Hmm.
12-hour, 24-hour races. And
When you're doing stuff like that and you're covering a ton of distance, are you riding like a hardtail for those or
back
like,
then, yeah, this was 98, 99.
oh, okay.
Yeah. I think I'm kind of out of it. See, I didn't love mountain biking. I loved road racing, but I
Hmm.
wasn't good enough for road racing. So
Gotcha.
I was really good on a mountain bike. I didn't love it. I crashed a lot, and but I was really good at the endurance because the endurance is mostly staying sane,
Hmm.
really. Because I did solo 24s, which you don't ride for 24 hours straight. Obviously, you sleep here and there.
Right.
I've
But
heard
it's a 24-hour long race, right?
24-hour long race. I've heard stories that I threw a bike at one of my mechanics once. I don't remember it. I don't doubt it, but it's mostly just staying sane. But and I won a fair share. I was never going to be like a winner in a pro cross country race. I just was always going to be one of those guys that filled out the team. But I mean, I got to wear a Trek Volkswagen jersey, and I still have it hanging on my wall. And
Yeah.
we have a few trophies and stuff, but it was fun. But now it's just I have a million injuries from it, and it's I had to retire at 23 because I had 6 diagnosed concussions
Oh my goodness.
in the previous year and a half, and it was probably more than that. And I actually was going to switch from Trek to another team, signed a contract, went to go get my physical. They said, we're not rejecting your contract, but you can't ride for a year because your head's scrambled eggs. And I basically failed my medical spectacularly. But they were
Jeez.
still willing to keep me because I was really good friends with the team leader. And then I went home from that exam and found out that my second wife was pregnant with my first child. So I said, never mind. I'm just going to retire and
Yeah.
don't miss it. I don't miss I would miss it if I'd have been a road racer
Hmm.
because that's all strategy and it's super fun. I had so much more fun in high level amateur road races than I ever did in pro mountain bike races.
Yeah.
It's so much more fun. And uh, yeah, it was cool for a while. I got a lot of good stories out of it, but I also have a lot of broken bones and you know, I'm 46 and my first waking thought every morning is ow. Something hurts, whether it's 7 broken ribs. I have 4 bulging discs in my neck. It's
Oh,
the concussion stuff is mostly okay, I think. But yeah, I was a nutcase. I got diagnosed as being bipolar for a couple years. I wasn't. It
wow.
just hit my head a lot, and
Yeah.
eventually figured all that out. My memory isn't amazing sometimes, especially names and stuff. I'm terrible with, but mostly everything's all right. I have really severe sensitivity to light. So if you ever see me in public, like even at Blade Show, I'm probably wearing sunglasses. It's not because I think I'm cool. It's because I can't. I'll go blind. If I walk outside in bright noonday sunlight, my right eye will go black within an hour.
Jeez.
Yeah,
I'll still assume it's because you're too cool.
it's partially that. Yeah, but it's yeah, and my contractual obligation to Oakley. I wish I was still sponsored by Oakley. I used to be sponsored by Oakley, and that was the most amazing sponsorship in the history.
I bet. Yeah.
I highly recommend if you can ever be sponsored by a company,
Oakley's the one.
Oakley's a good one. I would just get boxes of Oakley sunglasses. So
Yeah.
many that, like, if I was racing on my mountain bike and my glasses got muddy, I just chucked them.
Disposable.
I just chucked them and then grabbed another one in the next pit stop. When I was doing 24-hour races, just next time I pulled in, I just throw another pair on.
Yeah.
It was it's just throwing $120 sunglasses to everyone. And if you go to pro mountain bike races, you want a cheap pair of sunglasses, they're just everywhere.
Just hang out on the side of the trail.
Because they cost Oakley $5.
Right.
So everyone who is sponsored by them just would throw them away all the time.
Yeah.
Wearing Oakley glasses though. Now, so.
There you go.
These
It's
were
crazy
not
how
$5. These were $700.
Oh my goodness.
Well, I have the world's most complicated prescription.
Mm.
The frames weren't expensive. It's just I'm a blind person.
I'm lucky. I was blessed with really good vision, like an eagle eye over here.
Never had good vision. Then I hit my head a bunch, and I partially detached her retina. So that's
that'll do it.
That'll do her.
Man. So, how has your kind of outlook? I know obviously the knives that you review and that you collect and that you select for yourself are probably wildly different, especially like you said, when you started your channel, you had 2 knives. So other than like the knives themselves changing, which we can talk about as well, how has your, I guess, taste or like your criteria for what makes a good knife, has that changed over time? Has that been a steady curve or like?
Absolutely, for sure. I think, initially, I said I was only going to do budget stuff. Like that's kind of what my aim was.
Mm-hmm.
Even back then, there were some Chinese companies that didn't blow my skirt up. You know, like even back then, Ganzo and stuff like that. I'm like, those are copies. I don't want anything to do with that.
Right.
But there was, so I was trying to do, you know, like CRKT, budget Spydercos, stuff like that, and some Benchmades, and I think I foolishly said early on I was going to try to never review anything over $200 or something stupid like that. And that lasted about 6 months maybe. And so the prices went up. I think initially I was more of a steel snob than I am now. I think like once I got my first M390 knife, I thought everything had to be awesome like that, you know, when it definitely did not. Because I'm not the first person to say it. I think the first person to articulate it the best way was Pete from Centric Nada. Said, let's be honest, most of the people who are actual collectors, if I took all your knives out right now and replaced them with HCR 13 steel blades, you'd never notice.
You could probably replace a lot of them with aluminum, and a lot of collectors wouldn't notice.
Never notice. Now, I don't keep anything I won't carry.
Mm-hmm.
That's been one thing I've stuck with, and that's one thing that changed too. I think for a while I was always trying to get the new sprint runs, trying to get, you know, this new unobtainium. I don't care about that stuff anymore. I own one Spyderco sprint run because I wanted it.
That Native Chief, right?
That Native Chief, and I just recently bought it. I hadn't bought a sprint run in probably a year, and no, less than that, maybe 6 months. I had the S45V and PM2, but that's because I wanted to try S45VN, and there weren't.
And the Diamond Arc G10 they do on that one, right?
Yeah, I took those off immediately. It's green. But I just wanted to try the S45VN. I got my experience out of it. I sold it, not at a profit, but I broke even on it, whatever. I don't like chasing sprint runs because I don't like feeding that beast.
Yeah.
You know,
I have an interesting relationship with that one because the Spydercos that I keep are all sprint runs or exclusives.
See, I never keep the sprint runs.
Oh, see, I love it because like for a few bucks more than a basic paramilitary 2, I can have the one in CPM 10V. And then if I'm buying it for it to be my user knife, then what I'm in it for is super reasonable. And it to me, it makes sense as like the best case for one to use. But I have no interest in, I will never buy them secondary because I don't want to pay. There's going to be another sprint run soon. I'll just buy another good steel when it comes out.
And you're probably right. But see, when I use a knife for size comparison, like all my size comparisons, Spydercos are Maximat. Because I do like them all to match.
And it's production.
Yeah,
and
it's production.
Fantastic steel.
So I just get the high-end production ones. And that's kind of what I do. And for a while, a couple of years ago, I had all the Bulletbill S110Bs, all my size comparisons.
I remember that, yeah.
And now I transitioned into the Maximat ones. But yeah, the sprints, if you're actually buying them to actually use them, if you can get one when they come out, they're a great value. Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Like I just bagged on the Delica earlier how much I don't like the Delica because that crap VG10. But yeah, you get a Delica ZDP 189 or something like
You can
that.
get one in K390 now. Yeah.
K390, great value, you
Mhm.
know. But if you want to buy one in the secondary in a couple months, you're a moron.
That's the
You
key.
know,
Is just don't buy them on the
yeah.
secondary.
And so I didn't like feeding that beast. And honestly, I found view counts don't. Nobody cares. You
Yeah.
know, everybody cares. By the time I get it and I put it up, it's gone. And I bought that Native Chief, and I wasn't going to do a video about it at all. But I looked online and they were still around.
Mhm.
So that's why I did it. Because I think that one just kind of slipped under the radar. Like
Right.
people weren't buying it. It's a
Well, the
great.
Native Chief as a model in general, I think a lot of people weren't super aware of.
Yeah.
And it's a backlock, so that already kind of excludes a lot of the base who are into Spyderco, myself included. I had the fluted carbon S90V Native 5,
Mhm.
and it was my favorite backlock I've ever owned, but I just personally don't like backlocks. And so I kept it for an insane amount of time for it being a backlock personally. But like then I ultimately let it go to chase something else because I just don't love them. But I've handled the Native Chief, and if I was into backlocks, that S90V carbon fiber one would be the one that I would own, and it's gorgeous.
Yeah, and I like the Native Chief. I like a big pocket sword every now and then.
Yeah.
You know, and I still do enough stuff in the bike industry that bicycles arrive in gigantic boxes.
Mhm.
So I appreciate a good long slicey knife for hacking through boxes because I may be making a 3-foot cut,
Right.
in one swoop,
Mhm.
which doesn't sound like much for a knife to do, but it is. There's a
There
lot
are
of
a lot of
knives that
knives that, yeah,
really suck at it, and
yeah.
there are some that are really awesome. If something's going to bind up or not, and yeah, I like the Native Chief a lot. It's basically a long way to get to that. I think it's I think it's one of the best things they've come out with in the last couple of years. That and the Canis. The Canis is amazing.
See,
So
I still haven't handled the Canis, which is hilarious because I'm kind of a Spyderco fanboy. I get most of the ones that interest me, and that one did interest me. And I think it was just a timing thing. I had like
see,
too much other stuff I'd just gotten in, but
I was the opposite. I had no interest in it,
oh, really?
and then I got it because people were asking about it. I thought it was hideous. Still think
Yeah.
it's pretty hideous, honestly. But wow, that's a good knife. And they made such a big deal about it being so tactical. That always turns me off, because
Yeah.
I do know how to fight with a knife. Like I'm not an expert, but I was in the military. I used to be a classified courier. They taught us some stuff, and I know like it's the last thing I want to do. Like if someone comes up to me and I have a Coalsail Recon 1 in my pocket, one of the best tactical fighting folders there is, or a Spyderco Yojimbo, something like that. If I have something meant to do that in my pocket, it's the eighth thing I'm gonna do.
Mhm.
You know, it's a nasty business. So when people start talking about it's designed for self-defense, I'm like, but I got it kind of on a whim because people wanted to see the review, and holy crap, it's good. I actually sold mine and bought another
Hmm.
one. I sold it and immediately regretted it and got another one.
Yeah, I've had a lot of people since I got the Warncliffe PM2 cutlery shop did an exclusive. I've had a lot of people ask me how it compares to the Canis, and I'm like, I don't know. I haven't even held the Canis, which is weird because it's a compression lock Spyderco and a Warncliffe, and I'm a sucker for Warnies, and I think they look pretty cool, but I just haven't
Did
touched one yet.
Did you do the Watsu?
I did.
I
I
thought
had a loaner of the Watu. Yeah,
you liked it, didn't you?
I did. I
Yeah,
didn't
I
end
thought
up
you did.
buying one for myself, mostly because the
I think I
scales.
watched your Watsu. I
I
think you
think
might have gotten it before I did.
Yeah, I think if it had not carbon over G10 scales, that's one of those things that Spyderco does that just kind
It
of turns.
doesn't bother me at all.
No,
I I, th- I think I came into a point where I'm just so freaking used to it
I
that
just don't even like the feel of it. I think if it felt better, or I don't know, it just to me it seems like a weird material. And then it was like I
you're
have a lot
definitely
of
you're
slicey
definitely not alone.
Spydercos already.
You're definitely not alone. A lot of people really really loathe it.
Yeah,
I don't really care. It doesn't bother me one way or the other. But it's not like my favorite. It's not something I'd choose to have on it, but
yeah.
it's fine.
I'm sure somebody could, if I wanted one bad enough, someone could make me a set of scales and whatever I want for
Oh
it.
yeah,
But
absolutely.
it
Sharp
seems
cuts
like too
knives.
much
Send them
work.
to him. He'll make them.
Yeah.
That's what I do all the time. So that's my hinderer craziness. I've had him make XM18 skinny scales. He didn't make them until I sent them to him, and
Mm.
makes full track scales now because I wanted some. I sent mine to him.
I was trying to convince him the other day. I talk to him every now and then. He's sent me some stuff for the channel, which has been awesome. I was trying to convince him to let me send him my Demco 8020 to do a set of scales for, but he doesn't have the time yet. Hopefully soon.
And I don't think there's quite enough out there yet. Let one more run of 8020s happen.
Yeah.
And I think, God,
I bet out of the ones that are out there, though, there are 50 people that would get a set of
I
scales.
would love to have carbon fiber 8020 scales.
Yeah, some fat carbon, or I don't know, something fun would be sick on that knife.
Isn't that a fantastic fucking knife? I'm sorry I said I wouldn't say the F word.
No, you're good.
But that is worthy of it.
I just last night, actually right before we went live, my video went up on it, but I got this deep carry clip on Etsy just to try.
I just saw that pop up on my screen.
Yeah, I'm not sold on it yet because it sticks up way more proud than the factory scale. Yeah. And it doesn't, like, a lot of clips, they'll come down, they'll loop back up, and then they plateau. They come to a flat. This one does not come back to a flat. It's just straight up. Yeah. So it's kind of hot spotty in hand, but it carries a lot deeper. And
at least ours match, though. We both have the gray.
Yeah, that's what's up. Is yours 3V or 20 CV?
3V.
Nice. Twinsies.
Is yours? Oh, yeah. Awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, this was specifically the exact knife that I wanted. And
you've got exactly, this is the specific one that I wanted. I happened to luck out, and I vaguely knew Andrew. We had a very good conversation at Blade Show the year before, and he was kind of trying to explain the lock to me. And I didn't know who he was. He came up and said hello to me, and I big timed because I didn't know who he was. And I was talking to a rep from
and it's freaking Andrew Demko.
That's awesome. I was trying to talk to a rep from Best Tech of all things, and he said, "Oh, I really like your channel." And I just, "Oh, thanks, man," and went back talking. And then because I didn't know what he looked like, I'd never seen him before.
Yeah.
And then he kept standing there, and I turned around, and I looked at his badge, and I was like, "Oh, shit." And but we had a really nice conversation, and then, but I hadn't talked to him since, and I reached out to a friend of mine who I knew had a good connection with Demco, and I said, I really want one of those 8020s. Who do I have to talk to? And he goes, we'll talk to John, his brother. I talked to John. I happened to call John just the right day. John knew who I was. They were just starting a production run. Like, they were like 2 days in. So he said, we never take orders, but this is one time you can take an order because we're just starting right now.
That's awesome.
So I said, I want a 3V, and they shipped it the next day.
Ooh, that's quick.
Yeah, because they had stuff put together. They hadn't started assembling stuff yet. So everything was done. They just hadn't started assembling them. So, and then I paid extra for the next day shipping. It's one of like 3 times I've ever done that.
Yeah.
I wanted it so fast because I was so excited that I got one. I want to make sure I had it, so I wanted to make sure the dream was real.
Yeah. Yeah. I got
it.
They're teasing that. I keep forgetting what they call it, but they're doing like a Warney blade shape on one. And then I think they call it the shark's foot. Is what they're calling it. It's like sheep's foot, but shark.
And they're doing a less
DLC
expensive
ones. Yeah, there's the ones with the like FRN or GFN, whatever they call it, handles. I'm stoked about it. I'd love to get like a Warney one with the DLC blade because they do like a good DLC there too.
I try not to own multiple versions of the same knife, but I think 8020s I can have a couple of them.
Right. I'm that same way. I very rarely have multiples of a certain knife. If I do, it's because it's like a very specific reason, or I was given one of them or something.
Yeah, I have 2 XM18 skinnies, but that's because one is the COVID edition, and I had COVID, so it means something. I never carry it, but because it's a skinny skinner, which is like my least favorite blade.
It's your souvenir.
It was my souvenir from having lived through that crap because that was awful. It was 0 stars. Do not recommend. That was not fun. But yeah, so I have that, so I like having that. But yeah, I sold all my other XM8. I only have one XM18 regular one now. And I used to have more hinders than I have more Spydercos than anything else probably. But as far as expensive knives, I had more hinders than anything else. But my
Hmm.
Microtechs just caught up. So
Gotcha. Yeah, I've got a couple of Microtechs right now, which is weird for me. Usually I only have like, I'll get an OTF itch and then I'll get an OTF. I'll have like an Ultratech or something. And then a couple weeks later, it doesn't really do much for me and I'll end up letting it go. But now I'm about to finish my Combat Troodon full review. I've got the Bounty Hunter and
yeah, I have
the
the hell
regular.
that one.
Oh, that's so sweet. Yeah, I had a Hellhound Ultratech Bounty Hunter. This one's just Tanto on the Combat Troodon, but I found I have a regular Troodon right now as well, and I think that might be my Goldilocks in their lineup because
I think so too. I just got a purple one because of course I got to get purple. So I just put up tonight. I did a Microtech OTF buyer's guide video.
oh, rad.
But it's not all of them. It's not the Scarab 2 because that just came out and it's rarer than hen's teeth.
Yeah.
And no Halo because that's a single action. I didn't do the Deerot because that's a side. So it's just the Troodon and Ultratech series.
No Cypher either, right?
No Cypher because they're just rare. And
Right.
if I waited to get those, that video was never going to happen. So I just did the most common, the Microtech OTFs you can just go buy.
Yep.
And I had to get I never had a regular Troodon. I never looked at the sizes. I thought the regular Troodon was Ultratech size.
Nope. It's like UTX 85 size.
size. And I got this purple distressed one
There you go.
from Southern Edges,
Hmm.
which is my favorite place to buy Microtechs, not just because he loaned me some stuff, but yeah, he thinks he loaned me this, but he didn't. It's not going back. He knows that. But it's yeah, I love the distressed finish. It's so cool, and it's got the apocalyptic on the blade, and that's what my combat Troodon is as well. It's the distressed gray, and but yeah, I think this is my favorite one.
Dude, yeah. So I was just I've been slowly but surely just chipping away kind of one at a time, trying out different models from their lineup and seeing if there's one that sticks. And a lot of them are fun, but they don't end up like really clicking for me. Once the fun wears off, the knife isn't something I actually want.
Yeah.
And the Troodon, I hate glass breakers. So when I ordered it, I ordered a replacement screw and I deleted the glass breaker. So now it's nice and flush on the back. And the size, the weight, the way it carries, everything about it, I'm just like, it's good.
I need to order a crap ton of those screws because I hate the glass breakers too. They're stupid.
Yeah, what's frustrating for me is
I'd probably keep it on my Ultratech and my Combat Troodon because they're kind of big anyway. But all the other ones, yeah, and I keep it on my Bounty Hunter because it matches.
Right, Microtech used to offer them, and when I went to look for one, I found like old Blade HQ listings that they used to sell them, but I couldn't find from Microtech. Even on their site, there was no like listing to purchase glassbreaker delete screws. So I ended up, it's like an eBay listing that popped up when I Googled it, and I ordered it. It came with one big one that fits knives like this, supposedly, although it didn't quite fit on this one when I tried. And then a little one that goes on like the UTX 85 or the Troodon, stuff like that. And it went on just fine. It's stainless and all the hardware on my knife is black. So I'm either going to like dark etch it or I might just like rattle can it black or something to make it match temporarily.
I need to get one for my UTX 70 because like I would totally carry that like in a slip, like a slip joint, you know, buy like a real traditional leather slip joint slip, and then you have a
for your OTF.
It's kind of funny, but because I like autos way more than I like traditionals. That's just something I've never gotten into. But yeah, it's funny that I think the Troodon is the sweet spot.
And what's crazy too is not many people seem to have them or talk about them much. Like,
no.
I don't hear.
They're the most available ones you can buy.
Yeah,
that's why I included them. I was just going to do the whole video about the Ultratech series, just Ultratech, UTX 85, UTX 70. But when I started searching around for Microtechs, you can get a Troodon all day long. Like there are multiple places you can get them.
And a bunch of varieties on the shelf too. It's not like you're limited.
Yeah, and I mean, I just got this, and it was made in February 2019. And it was still just sitting around. And it's not the only one.
Right.
And this is the only run of the purple they ever did. So it's a pretty rare one.
Oh wow.
And still it was just sitting around. But I will say, people say, do you prefer Guardian Tactical or Microtech? I prefer the action on Guardian Tacticals by this much. They're just amazing.
Okay.
But the designs on Microtex are so much more exciting.
They're
Like
more
they just do
captivating.
so many more different things, and yeah, do colors matter? Hell yeah, they matter.
Yeah.
You know, people always say, "Oh, I don't care about the color. I buy it to use it." Bullshit. You care about the color.
Right.
You know, you didn't get the color you wanted, so now you're acting like you're too cool, for
Right.
school, and they're like, "No, I don't care about the color." Yeah, because you got a pink one.
I also think
That's why you're saying that.
especially on an OTF, people care about the color and the aesthetics
yeah.
because if you're looking for a knife for the most utility possible, I would
Last thing
never.
you should get.
Yeah, and it's funny. I'm actually going to be doing with my Troodon and probably just a PM2 or a pair of 3. I'm going to do a side by side, like cutting multiple different types of items comparison, because some people in my comment sections have been claiming that I'm wrong and explaining that cutting geometry matters and that double-edged OTFs are not good cutting tools compared to
Fine.
tall flat grinds that are thin behind the edge and are designed to slice. And so I'm going to do like an illustrative approach.
I'm sure that a good hollow grind is better, but it's not by enough to matter to anybody.
Yeah, I mean, an OTF is a fine cutting tool, but if your argument is like, I'm getting this to be a user EDC, it's like, I mean, you're picking a very tactical, like cool looking.
They just look cool. It's just like everybody who comes up with excuses for why they started smoking. You know, like I started smoking at 17 because I was really stressed out. I had a bad time in high school. Bullshit. You thought it looked cool.
Yeah.
Everyone started smoking because they thought it looked cool.
It wasn't medication for something.
There is no other reason that people started smoking, and any other reason is just horseshit. I do a joke about it now because I use the stupid vape thing. So I started smoking because it looks cool, and now the best way to quit makes you look like a jackass. Like there's no way.
That's karma for you.
There's no way to look cool with a vape, but it works. I haven't had a cigarette in a decade, probably. I probably have more nicotine in my body right now than I ever did, but I can breathe.
Yeah.
You know.
Now you just got to get the Subaru WRX to go with it, and you'll be set.
Get what? A WRX? I'm shopping for a WRX. Seriously, that's not even a joke. That is.
I love the car. It's just if I had one, I feel like I'd have to start vaping.
Yeah. Well, I owned a Subaru previous to this. I had an Outback. And now I have my big, loud, ridiculous truck. But I don't want to drive it next winter. I want it to be parked. It's about 400 horsepower and 2-wheel drive. It's a long
rear
bed.
Wheels in a truck. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's a long bed, so it makes it even worse. And I put good rubber on it this winter, and I didn't put snow tires on it because they're for cowards. I just put some beefy all seasons on it, and it was tolerable. But it's perfect. It's a 19. I'm sorry, it's a 2006, and there's no rust on it. It looks
Which is rare where you live. Here,
it looks like brand. It looks like brand new. It looks like it just rolled up. Like I get more compliments on that car than that truck than any other vehicle I've ever owned. And
didn't you do a thing where you spent 24 hours?
24 hours in it, yeah. And I just told my wife last night because I hadn't driven it in 3 days, and I ran to the store and I jumped in it, and I was like, "This is the most comfortable place I have to sit." Like in my life, like just those big. It's got a big stupid bench seat on it, and it's just so comfortable. And I said, when we move in a new house, I'm going to get another one of these bench seats and turn it into a couch.
There you go.
Like I used to have a BMW 750 when I lived in Germany, the big V12 dictator.
Oh yeah.
And the power motor broke in my seat, which was going to cost 700 euros or something to fix because they had massage seats and all that stupid crap.
Yeah.
So instead, I just took the seat out. I bought a seat off of a wrecked one and put in it. It was cheaper to fix, but I still had the seat. So I turned that into a 200-pound office chair because car seats are very heavy.
Yeah, the 7 Series has really comfortable seats. I sold BMWs for quite a while.
Yeah, they're amazing. I had a 1999 750iL.
Rad.
And until you had to go get something fixed, then it was not so rad. But at the time, living over there, I was in the Air Force, so I paid U.S. prices for gas. So I was paying like $1.50 a gallon. everybody else was paying like $7 or $8 a gallon. So I bought that thing.
Puts a dent.
Yeah, so I bought that thing. It was a big gas crunch. So I bought that thing 3 years old for $12 grand.
Oh my goodness.
It had 61,000 kilometers on it when I bought it, and drove it all the time for like, it was huge. It was stupid to have in Germany. Like, it was hard to get through town and stuff with. Sometimes it was so.
Yeah.
I wanted to make flags of a fictional country.
Like
and
you're
put
a
like
diplomat?
On the corners. Yeah, like I'm a diplomat driving around. But it was great. But yeah, I had to take it in for its 70,000 kilometer service or whatever. It's a V12, so I went in and it goes in. The guy comes out and he hands me a bill for 4,000 euros, and I go, "Oh my God, what was wrong with you?" "Well, nothing is wrong. You take very good care of this car. It's in perfect condition. This is what it costs." And I was like, "Oh my God!" Like, so it was like it had a valve adjustment and all this.
Yeah. Cost of ownership is a real deal on those.
Such an
German,
expensive car to own, but then it only got about 8 miles a gallon. Like on the Autobahn, you said you could set the cruise control to 130 miles an hour, and you were getting 8, 9, 10 miles a gallon.
Yeah.
And but then I had it for 2.5 years. The gas crunch passed. Gas was a reasonable price again in Germany, and I sold it for 34,000 euros.
So you made
almost
out like
tripled
bandit.
the price, that I bought it for.
That's
And
crazy.
It was a great car, but eventually we wound up with I had an M3 that I drove a lot more, and then that broke, and I had an Audi S4. But the 750 was like the family wagon.
Yeah.
But I like my big old truck now. It's fun.
Yeah. I think my next car is going to be a truck, probably just like a Tacoma or something. But
yeah,
like,
I looked around for stuff like that, and then I kind of gave up on a truck. And I'm honestly, I have a GMC Sierra 1500, but I had wanted. I was brought up a Ford guy, so I wanted an F-150, but in my price range, they were all those bulbous,
yep.
2000s.
I do not love that body style.
Hideous, and they all have like faded taillights or headlights. Every single one has like the cloudy headlights.
Yep.
And then stumbled upon this one looking for another BMW. I gave up and I went to a dealership we bought our last Volkswagen from, and I was looking at Beamers, and on the list they had this perfect GMC. It was just perfect. So I went there looking at a BMW 330 that had been lowered, which I didn't like that at all. And then the complete opposite, this big old GMC. And I remember I got in it and turned the key and it went, whoa, and it rocked, like they do. And I just couldn't find any rust on it. I climbed around all over the thing. I could find none. There's none. And you just don't see that. And had thoughts of lowering it and all that stuff. I'm not going to lower it now. I'm going to put NASCAR wheels on it, because the only flaw in it aesthetically is that the aluminum wheels are kind of corroded. It's from Tennessee, and I don't know what they put on the roads there, but it corroded the aluminum wheels. And
it's a good excuse to put new wheels on.
Yep, I'm going to put the NASCAR Steelies on it, and it's 400 horsepower now, which is fine. I tuned it and put an intake on it, and that's 400 horsepower is more than enough.
Right.
It will break loose. It will. And it's just fun. And that's useful. I can actually throw stuff in the back when I want to. I think there's 2 garbage bags full of beer cans in it right now, actually, that I just haven't bothered to drop off. That I just threw in the back. And I know it's still got needles from Christmas in it. It's got a big tonneau cover on it, so I don't see what's in
trapped back there. Yeah.
Yeah, I forget what's back there and what is it.
Epic. Yeah, for a little bit, I worked with a company. I was the sales department for a small startup company that was part of Honda's off-road racing program, which is funny because you say Honda and off-road racing, and it doesn't, unless you're talking about dirt bikes, it doesn't normally ring such a bell. But we raced the trophy truck, the factory effort, and it ran a Honda power plant. And now they race the Talons, the side-by-sides and stuff. But before that, I'd always been into like cars and sports cars, and I loved. I had worked in the industry for a while, so I sold Audis and BMWs, and I'd owned a really nice Audi A6 with the 3-liter supercharged, and I loved that car.
That's what I
Now,
went to buy when I bought the 750. I was going to get
oh
an
no
A6.
way!
I went to the dealership to buy an A6 diesel,
Yeah,
and the guy pointed me towards this BMW. It's a beautiful car, but I can't afford it. And he was like, "You don't pay anything for gas. I've had this car for 6 months. No one wants. No German will buy it.
yeah,
You're an American. You'll buy it because you can afford the gas." And I was like, "All right."
that's
And
epic.
that's how I got it.
Yeah. But yeah, so in working with and for that race effort, I got to go and be part of like the pit crew who would be like chase the race truck during races, right? And when you're doing endurance off-road races, sometimes it's a stationary pit that the truck comes back to. Other times you're going point to point with it. And I just kind of got hooked on the idea of like having all of the utility of a truck. And I'd always liked trucks. I just never like saw myself owning one. And now, especially because I spend so much more time than ever in my life outdoors and wanting to get to remote places and all that kind of stuff, it's like I want the 4-wheel drive and a lot of room and to just be able to like have that different lifestyle.
Yeah, the only thing that sucks about trucks now is they're getting expensive.
Yeah.
Like I paid 11.5 grand for mine.
Oh, that's ridiculously low.
I don't. Yeah, it had 69,000 miles on it. The
Crazy.
dealership normally sold BMWs and Mercedes and Audi and Volkswagen. They wanted it just gone.
Yeah.
I've been offered seriously 18 grand for it.
Wow.
And then I have been offered, I don't know if it was serious or not, 25,000 for it. And looking online, yeah, it's probably about right because it's all the modifications I've done to are reversible. So,
yeah. You could bump it right back down to stock real quick.
Yeah, I do it. It is right now. I bumped it down. I mean, it still has the intake on it, but I bumped the tune down to stock now because it's winter and I don't want my back wheels breaking loose all the time. So it's back down to 330 or whatever it was stock. But yeah, everything's reversible. There's no rust. It looks perfect. And yeah, especially from 5 feet away, it looks like a brand new truck. And the most common question I get is, "What year is that?" 06. And like, how does it look the way it came from Tennessee? And like,
I probably garaged it too.
Yeah, it does have the only flaws in the paint. It has some pine tar damage on the hood and the roof, which I think if I get a proper paint correction guy to come, I think he can fix it. But,
with a clay bar, somebody who knows what they're doing.
Yeah, but and if not, my insurance company said they'd actually pay to repaint it. But I don't want to repaint it if I don't have to. I want to keep original paint. But
yeah.
We got off on a tangent. I can talk about cars and trucks.
I can talk cars all day as well.
Ever.
So your collection, I feel like in the time that I've watched your channel, has seemingly gone some pretty radical places. But one thing that I think is oftentimes kind of hard as a viewer of a YouTube channel to understand is a lot of the time, especially if you're not always watching that YouTuber, you might not see what's staying in their collection long term.
Yeah.
Do you have a pretty set like tolerance for how many knives you keep, how many you let go?
That's why I do the monthly top 5 I most carried. That's the best way to see what stays around. Because when I do those most carried, that's not stuff I carried for review. A lot of times when I carry a review knife, I have 2 knives on me. I have the one that I like, and then I've got the review one in my pocket. And so that's the best way to keep up with what I actually keep. I still, oddly, I mean, I don't know. I always say never count your shit because you don't want to know how many you have. But I'm guessing 80 something. It used to be 110, 120 something. And I've knocked it way down. If I didn't have the channel, I could very happily have like 20 knives.
Yeah.
It'd be completely fine. Which still is ridiculous. But, that's kind of the number I think that would keep me happy because I've seen the other side now, But I still don't consider myself a collector. And maybe it's because I know there's a good chunk of my collection that I only have, for the channel. which
Yeah.
I say for the channel, but a lot of them aren't for the channel. Like, I wouldn't own a paramilitary 2 if I didn't have this channel. I keep it around for size comparisons, you know.
Mhm.
Definitely wouldn't own a pair of 3.
See, what's funny is I
Don't
think
particularly like it, you know.
if I had
But
to
I got
only
one.
have a knife, like if I needed to get as much money out of my collection as I could and just keep one thing to like use until I could afford knives again, I'd probably only keep the PM2, which is funny because I get a lot of people it's not their choice, but it just clicks for me.
I like it. I appreciate it, but I like the Mannix 2 better. Like,
Mm.
but gun to my head, Spyderco I'm going to keep. It's going to be a Slicey Bowie or a Spidey Chef.
Hmm.
You know, and if I only had to keep one, it's going to be a Hinder or Chris Reeve probably. You know, one of those 2. But yeah, it's just odd. I still don't consider myself a collector because I'm never trying to check boxes.
Yeah.
And I think that's the difference between a collector and just an enthusiast. You
It's a
know,
good way of putting it. Yeah.
I think once you get to the point of, okay, I love Spyderco PM2, I need 9 of them. I need this one, and this one, this one, this one. And that's to me a collector. You know, where I've had a bad habit in my life of making hobbies into jobs. So that's why I don't do watch reviews, because that's a hobby.
Mm-hmm.
You know, but I'm into Seiko watches. It's always been like my thing. I was raised there with my dad. I'm a Seiko collector. I only have 7 of them, as opposed to my 80-some knives. But I consider me more of a Seiko collector than a knife collector, because I did say I want this one, I want this one, I want this one, and I have a list of 3 or 4 more.
You're chasing.
That I want,
yeah.
because I'm checking boxes.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like, okay, I have a turtle, I have a monster. Now I need to get an SKX. You know, I need to get a cocktail time. Like, there's different ones that I know I want to get. I've never been that way with knives. It's been if an individual one, you know, thrill me, then I would get it. Now I've chased one down for the channel. Like I said, you know, I had to have a 940, I had to have a PM2, I had to have, you know, the benchmark knives. It's why I just got an Ultratech, you know, a couple of weeks ago, because I didn't have an Ultratech, and that's like the benchmark, you know,
Right.
OTF. So, yeah, I just don't. Do you think you're a collector, or do you still think you're just an enthusiast who likes what he likes?
Yeah, I don't know if I always refer to the knives I own as my collection, because I feel like that's just the term for like
Yeah,
how many I have. But I don't consider myself, like, when I think in my
try and
mind's
say
eye,
the fleet.
there you go. When I think of a collector, like if I were to picture it in my mind, who is a collector? A lot of the time my mind goes more so to, like you said, people who are chasing like complete sets of things, like people who have every single version of a knife, whether it's an inexpensive like budget knife, like maybe someone has every Civivi. Cool, they have a collection
They
of
have a big
Civivis.
house.
Yeah, that's a lot of knives. But it also goes to like the guys who are into customs, and like they're kind of curating like almost a display a lot of the time of these like pieces that are artistic. And to me, that seems very collection. But I like the way you put it, that you see yourself as the enthusiast, because to me, it is about like what's shiny right now. I don't in this stage even have like grails like a lot of people talk about. Like,
I don't.
to me, it's just, what am I getting next? You know,
a lot of people, if you ask them what their grail knife is, they can answer it like that. And for me, I'm like, man, I don't know. And I think part of it, you're about a year in, you're starting to get a little jaded, like I said. And I think that's part of why you don't have grails anymore. Like, I had a couple knives that were grails, and then I got to know more about that manufacturer, and I'm like, I don't really care much about getting one of those. I'll review it or whatever, but I don't really want one.
Yeah.
And
for a long time,
and then vice versa. I've had knives that I was kind of lukewarm about, and I got to know the people that make them, and I really wanted one.
Yeah.
But I think now, if I gun to my head, I have a grail, a Shira Gurov of some kind. And
see,
I
for me,
don't
it's
care
been
which one.
I had a loaner of the Oz Machine Co. or OZ, whatever it's called, Roosevelt.
I've heard nothing but amazing things about those.
I ever since I had the loaner have needed to have one. And it's the first knife in a long time that's done that to me. Usually I get a loaner, and it's really nice if I love it, because by the time I let it go again, I know if I get my own, I'm never going to carry it, because I'm always working on what I'm reviewing next. And so it's like, good. I got to experience one. I know that I love that. but it doesn't make sense to circle back to it. The Oz, Roosevelt was the only one really that has been like, I have to have that. And
Yeah,
the other day I got on his books. So
I need to experience one of those because they're not expensive, right? It just takes a long time to get one.
no, so the way he did it before, this might take us down into the weeds a little bit because it's just gotten kind of confusing the last couple of days. It used to be if you got one of his book spots, which is really difficult to do. The first time I tried was like 4 or 5 months ago. They sold out in like under 30 seconds for 50 spots, and all you had to pay was a $10 deposit. But then when your number came up, you'd get reached out to by Daniel over there, and he'd say, "What do you want to do?" Basically. And he had his baseline knife, which was like $500 or $600, and he uses Z-Finite or Z-Finite. I don't know how you say it. It's basically LC200N,
Yeah,
and then it's titanium frame lock, fairly simple. Now he doesn't insert. He used to do 2 ceramic balls in it. But yeah, so it's like a pretty simple frame lock, and you could do like crazy show scale and fat carbon or really intricate milling. You could do coated or uncoated. You could do any color of anodization, like you tell him the number on the spectrum you want it at. You could do that with stone washing or plain. You could do crazy blade finishes from hand rub to, I think he did offer some Damascus. So there were some people who were doing builds that were like $1,200, $1,300 from him, right? But even the plain Jane ones on secondary were bananas. Like I had one offered to me that the guy I know paid no more than maybe $700 for, and his like friend offered to me was like $1,200. And
that's.
like,
I was gonna say I saw one on Blade Forums the other day for 14,
yeah, it's
and
crazy.
it looked like Les George or something. You know,
Yeah.
it didn't look. No insult to Les George knives; they're fantastic,
Right.
but they're not art.
And they
You know,
hardly ever pop up. So
yeah,
this book opening he just did the other day, a little bit before it, he explained in like a Instagram, not a reel, the longer one. I don't know.
yeah.
Instagram video.
Reels is the long one.
Is it?
Yeah, Reels is the longer one
Okay. In
because
that,
you watch a 1 minute. It says continue watching on Reels.
that's it. So in one of those, he explained, I'm a terrible millennial for not knowing that. He explained that for this batch, he was doing 100 spots and you'd pay the full base price up front. So you pay $500 for your spot and there would be less options. So now basically he was going to do just one blade finish, which was like a high polish, then stone wash. I think he added his vapor honed because a lot of people really wanted that, myself included. I'm glad that that seems to have been added back in. But now he's having his bevels ground by the same company that does Hinderer's bevel grinding. And he did a little bit of a changing on how he's machining the handles. And so to some people, it sounded more like they're kind of mid-tex now, like he's doing a little bit less of it in-house. And you have to pay up front, and it was more spots. But the idea for him was he can get a lot more of them done this way. It'll take him less time per knife. And so, yeah, I got really, really lucky. I was at my brother-in-law's house, and last time I was checking out at like 36 seconds and missed it. It was like that fast of a pre-order for 50 spots. This one I was hoping would last longer because you had to pay $500 instead of just a $10 deposit, and there were twice as many spots. Not the case. This one sold out in under 30 seconds, and I missed it, but my brother-in-law was my backup, and he's really, really quick. He's like an SEO guy, and so he happened to nail one, so I PayPal'd him right then and there for the spot, and I'm giving him a knife as a thank you, but I got one. And so I don't know yet what I'll do with my build. I'll probably keep it pretty vanilla just because I want to actually carry and use the knife.
That's why I don't do customs, because my overall tastes are pretty boring. Like,
yeah, I don't want Damascus. I don't want Timascus.
Yeah, and I just think I would feel bad to reach out to, like Richard Rogers or some of these amazing, they make these beautiful, beautiful knives and just say, I just want a plain titanium one.
It's like a waste of a book spot.
In 20 CV. Yeah, I feel like I'd be wasting their time. And I mean, I have some purple knives, I just show you that Trudon and stuff. And I have some flashy stuff, but I think Timascus is hideous.
Same.
I think Mokutai looks worse. There's just so many things that everybody says, look at my amazing, beautiful build. And I'm just like,
no,
like a full like Damascus blade, Timascus handle. I joke around with Frank, Dr. Frankie, I'm good friends with him. And our running joke is, he shows his crazy builds that he makes. And um, did you ever? I mean, you remember like, well, no, you're younger than me. When I was a kid, you go to the mall and they had those magic pictures that like you had to stand 10 feet back and look at it cross-eyed, and you'd see a sailboat.
Oh yeah, it would become 3D or whatever.
Yeah, they're all
Yeah, yeah.
squiggly.
I had books
So
of those.
yeah,
Yeah.
so anytime that he shows one of his crazy knives, I call it a sailboat. So I'll be like, "Oh, I see a sailboat." It's all squiggly like that.
Yeah.
And I think he thought it was funny the first 5 times I did it, and then I don't think he thought it was funny for the next 100 times that I did it.
Then it
But
got
now
funny again.
it's funny again. Yeah, I kept at it so long. That's if you have a joke that doesn't work, you just got to keep pounding it in there, and eventually
There you go.
it comes around and becomes funny because no one can believe that you're still doing that.
Man. Yeah, the only times that I like those fancy materials are very small touches maybe on a knife that's otherwise a little too simple. Like if it's a pivot collar and that's it.
Exactly. Yep.
Okay.
Or a
But
thumb
even
stud.
then, I wouldn't normally like if I was given the option, if it's $100 more to have that thing, I'm not picking it.
No.
Maybe if it's $20 more, I'll pick the cool looking pivot
Maybe
collar.
a back spacer or something like that.
Sure.
But
Yeah, I did on my Jaeger M, my Brian Brown. I got offered from a buddy. He had a Timascus clip, and so I bought it from him. And I still paid him like $75 for it, but it showed up, and Timascus is usually anodized, like blue and purple and bronze, and like it looks like an oil slick on top of water.
Yeah.
And so I just pulled the ano right out of it, and now I think it looks pretty cool because
that does
it's
look
like,
cool. Yeah, that's awesome.
It's not trying to be in your face. There's like a little bit of bronze kind of still in the dark parts, and it matches
cool,
the micarta a little bit. So it's like, it's different, but I also still have the factory clip. And if I had ruined that, it wouldn't have been any.
Yeah, but $75. Yeah.
No big deal. But yeah, I can't stand it when it's like, I don't know, full dress knives just don't make any sense to me. And some materials I think are fun, like fat carbon I think looks cool. Or
and I've had some carbon scales I like a lot. Like I mentioned earlier, bringing up about, I mean, I got the fat carbon marble on my full track, which it never came this way, and but and I have a lot of custom scales and stuff. I do scale swaps and things like that, to make something pretty. I have a lot of my Cardic, aftermarket scales and stuff, but it's just the over the top like custom stuff I just don't get. And it's the terrible thing to say. I'm supposed to care, but once a knife costs over $1,000, I stopped caring.
Yeah.
I just don't. The most expensive knife I own base, I'm sure that a couple of my Hinders with all the modifications are more, with all the aftermarket parts are more, but was the Combat Shuriken. It was $685. It's the most I've ever spent on a knife, and I remember it because I paid full boat for it. I remember almost every knife I paid full price for. I remember now,
Yeah.
because I don't get much stuff for free at all. Not like everybody thinks. The knife industry doesn't make it rain.
Yeah.
I get given more free watches than knives now, and I'm not even a watch reviewer. But
That's crazy.
But I don't pay retail very often.
Right.
Yeah,
for me, the first the really grail that I had that I let myself get was my Koenig Arius. I got a Gen 3, and that was the most I had spent on a knife. And then I ended up selling that because I didn't let myself carry it, and I felt dumb for kind of having it. And then I came full circle on it, and I was like, I'm going to get another one, and I'm going to carry and use it. And I did, and now my Gen 4 Arius is like my favorite knife in my collection.
And that's one that was my grail for a long time, and I think it just was my grail for too long. Now I just don't care that much anymore.
Yeah.
Now I specifically want a non-flipper. If I had if I could find a non-flipper,
those are cool.
Then maybe. But I think right now I've kind of moved on to the Shiro.
Yeah. What's crazy is even that one, like on my Arius, the one grail that I've let myself get and have and use, I have the most plain Jane basically version that you can possibly get.
Yeah.
And I don't want it to be nicer. Like it wouldn't make me
you want to carry
it to be crazy. Yeah.
Yeah, I did that with a Hinder XM24. I had vintage.
Oh, I love those.
And beautiful, gorgeous knife, but I liked it so much that I bought a plainer one when the
Yeah.
sheep's foot came out because I love sheep's foot blades. And I love carrying the XM24. I know it's a big old knife, but I don't know. To me, it's fine to carry. It doesn't bother me a bit.
Yeah.
And so I got the sheep's foot, and then I wound up selling the vintage because it was like, had mildew or something. I'm like, now
Yeah.
that I have the regular one, I'm never going to carry the fancy one anymore.
Right.
So I might as well let it go. And like you said, I don't often own multiples of the same knife for very long.
Yeah. Makes sense. Yeah, it's rare for me. And it's interesting too, like consistently I haven't found myself wanting to go above this range, yeah, ever since having it. Like up
There's a
until this
law of
range.
diminishing returns, which
Yeah.
I think
But
even the most discerning custom knife maker or knife collector, I should say, the most discerning custom knife collector begrudgingly would agree with that.
yeah.
And I think it's especially diminishing returns because I've had the opportunity to handle a lot of customs, and most Riots are made better.
Absolutely.
Most Wiis are made better, especially when you get down to the guys who are making 30, 40, 50 a year.
Mm-hmm.
And nothing wrong with that. That's what you're getting into. That's that same way with everything. If you buy a custom built, resto mod, car that costs 200 grand, you probably go buy a Porsche that's built 50 times better,
Right.
but it's just what you want, and that's fine.
Well, yeah, you could buy a Singer air-cooled Porsche Resto mod
For
for
half a
$500,000,
yeah,
or you could buy a brand new 911 Turbo RS that's
that's a
faster
very
and
very
more
good, very good
convenient.
explanation. Yeah,
Yeah.
but I would take the Singer, but
I mean,
because
it would be a real hard call for me, but
you can
if I
floor the Singer and not
True.
go to prison.
Yeah.
Where that's the thing in supercars, you get to a point where it's like it's unusable.
Yeah. It's nice to know
usable. You can
it's
daily
there.
drive it and enjoy it,
You could take it to a
but
track too,
yeah, and die or wad it up. I
maybe.
mean, have you done track days before? It doesn't make you a god because it's a track. You still have to know what you're doing.
Oh yeah, no, there's still so I've had the opportunity to do a couple of track days just from being in automotive for so long with launches of new vehicles, or for a while I did automotive photography and stuff like that. And yeah, I mean, you can tell pretty quickly when you're like, if I would go with a dealership to a track day where they're rolling out, like I was with Lexus when the RCF came out,
Mm-hmm.
and we did a track day for that. And I just remember
Very fun car.
the misconception that a lot of people had where it was like, this is going to be so fun. And then instead they were just terrified the whole time. And like, they're in the car with an instructor and they're getting yelled at because they're doing stupid stuff. And it's like, it's a really dangerous, serious thing. But when you build your skills as a driver, you spend enough time doing it, then tracks become really, really fun.
I lived 11 kilometers from the Nürburgring
Ooh,
in Germany, so I
I
went
would kill
there.
to drive the ring.
The Rings of Blast. So I went there like on a tourist foreign day, like the tourist day, where the run what you brung, anything you want, and
Yeah. No cages, no helmets, just
no nothing. And I went
go
there
ham.
with what did I have at the time? What car was it? Maybe it was my M3. Did I have the M3 then? I don't remember. But I went there, did a couple of laps, and thought I like this enough. I really want to learn what I'm doing.
Mm-hmm.
And found an instructor. They're all over the place around the ring, and yeah, actually learned how to properly drive.
Yeah.
And it was a blast.
It's
And
amazing how, like, if you spend a lifetime driving on roads publicly, the way most people drive cars, like all of the dynamics and the way that you drive on a racetrack is not just intuitive. Like being fast from stoplight to stoplight does not at all help you understand how to really properly take a corner and how to use your gear range. Like most people aren't even playing that game at all.
No.
Yeah.
I got down to mid eights in my Audi S4.
Oh, that's awesome.
And I was quite happy with that. I
Yeah,
liked the M3 a lot better. It was much more fun,
Mhm.
but the S4 was so much faster
A
because
lot
it
more
was
planted.
newer generation twin turbo 5-cylinder. it would get out of its own way pretty quick.
Yeah. Was that a B5 S4 back then?
Yeah. And loved it. It was like a dark navy blue, black leather manual. It was. I can't say it was a great car. I didn't enjoy it. I think because I had an E30 M3 before that, I went from a 91 M3 or 89 M3 to that.
Yeah, and the E30 was a lot lighter.
A lot lighter, and just especially the S4 was too good.
Yeah.
So,
and rear-wheel drive lightweight just feels so much different from the driver's seat.
Sucked all the joy out of it for me. You know, my wife at the time obviously liked the S4 a lot better. When I would let her drive it, which was pretty rare. Yeah. And but yeah, and then like little stuff broke on it. It cost a crap ton to fix because it's a friggin' Audi.
Yeah.
And yeah, little things like that. But my M3 had a good life. I enjoyed it. It did a lot of laps around the ring, and it became a race car when I was done with it. So I sold it to a buddy of mine down the street who converted it to a full-on sequential gearbox, stripped out roll cage, race car, and I got to drive it around the ring as a race car.
That's epic.
That was part of the deal. I said you can buy it, but when it's done, I get to go drive it full race trim.
That's so sick.
Around the ring, and that was a lot of fun. It was a full DTM replica.
Ooh.
It was white with the stripes and everything on it, with the stripes, and he did a beautiful job with it. And I did one lap with it and thought that's enough, because I don't want to wreck my buddy's car that I know he spent 2 years building. And it felt really bad.
That's real scary. My favorite things were always track days with OEMs, where it's like they just have a fleet of cars out and they're like super insured. And luckily, I never even damaged a vehicle on the track. But when you're not paying for tires or gas or being all that overly worried about pushing a car to its limits, it's nicer than it being your buddies who you'll ruin his life.
I went through the gravel on the S4 one time at the ring, but I kept going. Like I didn't even stop. There was never a point where I thought I was going to hit something. And the only time, and that time that I went in the gravel was, I swear, not my fault. Somebody just zigged when they should have zagged. And I had to go. I thought I was only going to get 2 wheels in the grass, and I wound up getting all 4 in the grass. And then I wound up with 3 wheels in the gravel. Luckily, it was all-wheel drive, so it crabbed its way out, and I just kept going. I got yelled at because I guess you're supposed to stop instead of spreading gravel over the track like I did. But
makes some sense.
Well, I'm having a good time, but my battery's about to die. So
you're good.
I can't plug in because I have my earbuds in. So.
It's all good. Well, Brian, it's been a pleasure. I hope we can do this again sometime.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been a lot of fun.
Yeah. So tell the people who are listening, because I don't know a good way to link. This will go on YouTube as well as every major podcasting platform. So for the people who are listening, where can they find your channel if somehow they're aware of me and aren't aware of the lucky idiot, Brian from Slicey Dicey?
YouTube.com/Slicey Dicey. Instagram handle is Slicey Dicey 75. And hopefully about a week from today, which we're recording this on the 15th of March, hopefully about a week from today, sliceydaily.com, which will be news and reviews and stuff like that in written form.
Perfect. Very cool. Well,
like old school words.
You hardly get those these days.
I still consider myself more of a writer than a YouTuber, because I spent so many years writing reviews that this is still kind of new to me.
Well, you're crushing it on the spoken word as well. So
thank you.
I appreciate it.
How are you, sir?
Thank you. I try. Well, cool. Yeah, we'll do this again sometime. It's been a lot of fun. And check out Slicey's channel if you haven't before. And yeah, this has been episode number 12. It's been a good time. So we'll catch you guys on the next one. Thanks, everybody.